These women did everything. So they were working directly with special operations units, and we trained on everything. I mean, these women were fast roping. They were shooting rifles, shooting pistols. We were learning CQB. We were doing ruck marches, 5 mile runs, and mind you, these ladies were doing all this PT that Americans do. We were doing it with them, except they were doing it in full hijab, long sleeves, and pants in the summer of Afghanistan. So they didn't let anything stop them.
Welcome to Combat Story. I'm Ryan Fugit, and I served war zone tours as an Army attack helicopter pilot and CIA officer over a 15-year career. I'm fascinated by the experiences of the elite in combat. On this show, I interview some of the best to understand what combat felt like on their front lines. This is Combat Story. Today we have a unique combat story and our first ever with an Afghan Special Operator, Farida Mohammadi, and one of her American partners and trainers, Taylor Holliday. Farida was a member of the elite Female Tactical Platoons, or FTPs, which numbered fewer than 35, that we heard about in episode 68 with former Ranger Battalion operator Patrick Kinsella. Farida, like all FTPs, had to pass a rigorous special operations selection process and were trained in CQB, a variety of firearms and tactics just like their male counterparts. She then went into battle alongside Rangers, ODAs, and Afghan Special Forces to give you an idea of the level of expertise required. We're also fortunate to have Taylor here to share parts of her story as a cultural support team member, the FTP trainers, who not only train women like Farida, but who also went on the objective with special operations units. Taylor is a part of Sisters of Service, a nonprofit formed by fellow CSTs to help evacuate Farida and other FTPs out of Afghanistan after everything fell apart and help them resettle in the U.S. It's a selfless organization, and I hope by the end of this interview you'll find a way to contribute to their cause and help women like Farida who are taking out HVTs in Afghanistan and help her and others find a better life here in the U.S. I hope you enjoy this very special combat story with two very special operators as much as I did. Thank you, Taylor and Farida, for taking the time to share what I am sure are going to be very interesting stories with us today, something we have not heard before. So first of all, a huge thank you and welcome. And Taylor, I wonder if we could start out, if you could share how you and Farida know each other.
Yeah, thank you for having us, Ryan. Farida and I met on my deployment to Afghanistan in 2018. I was serving with the Cultural Support Team Program, or CST, and Farida was serving with the Female Tactical Platoon, or FTPs, in Afghanistan. And so on my 9-month deployment there, we met through training together, and we've been friends ever since. And since the evacuation of American forces in Afghanistan last year, Farida and I got reconnected through a new organization that a bunch of us CSTs started called Sisters of Service, where we were assisting our Afghan sisters getting out of the country, and now we're helping them resettle all across the U.S. So Farida and I got reconnected through that program.
Perfect. Such a good setup here, and there's great material out that's just starting to come out because this is so new. Not many people have heard of the Female Tactical Platoons, the CST, obviously. I know Politico did a fantastic article that we'll have linked in here that just talks about the experience of women like Taylor and Farida, not just in country, but then trying to get out, which was, I know we'll touch on here, and was very difficult. So thank you for the setup, Taylor. Great to know about Sisters of Service. And then Farida, if we can start with you, I know you spent most of your life in Afghanistan, and we're going to talk a lot about that shortly. But did you ever imagine as a young girl that you might one day be living in America?
No, I had never imagined about such a life that one day I will be in United States. In Afghanistan, I had a happy life. I was FTP and I was proud of myself. Because working on military in a traditional country like Afghanistan is not easy for women. And I was so happy that I do this. And beside FTP, I had other plan for my future. I wanted to keep learning. I go to university and I must be a doctor in future when I get older and I'm not able to work as a FTP. I must be a doctor to I serve for my people from this way. Yeah, and I didn't imagine about this. I leave my country. If I did, it was in different way. Maybe I like to come by a scholarship for studying or something else, not as a refugee. But everything happened so suddenly. When I came to United States, I had just two pair of clothes and one pair of shoes, and I started my life from zero. Yeah,
Wow.
and I'm happy about the. I'm happy and also I'm sad. I'm happy that I'm in a beautiful country with peace and freedom, and I can work like for a while. I worked as a roofer, but just a few days ago I quit my job from my job. Yeah, and I'm sad about this that I lost my achievement from 6 years that I had in military, and I'm not FTP any longer. And the other reason that my parents that, who supported me in all my life, today I live behind me in Afghanistan, and now I'm in United States.
Yeah. And for those who are listening, I mean, Farida was working as a roofer is what we just heard. Um,
Yeah.
which is just astounding and such difficult work. So, Farida, if I can ask you, now that you've been in America for a little bit, what have you found unusual about this country that maybe you didn't expect?
You know, I lived in Kabul city. In Kabul city, it was a busy city. When you walked on outside on the street, there are a lot of car, motorcycle, bicycle, people. You don't have any room to breathe. And when we watched the movie, United States movie, United States was the same one movie. Yeah, it was so busy. Yeah, but when I came to United States and I settled in Lancaster City, it was different and it was unusual for me. When I walked on outside, it was so quiet city and I didn't see any people to walk and just people drive. It was unusual for me. It was so quiet city.
I never would have thought of it that way. That's interesting. Um, Farida, if we could return to your life as a young girl in Afghanistan, um, just before we speak about your time in the military, would any of your friends and family, if looking back as a young girl, would they have ever thought one day Farida is going to be a special operations soldier?
No one thought like this, because I grew up in a very traditional and remote area, and those people just think women are for house to cook and give birth baby and work on the farm. Our village was so backwarded. We didn't have access to network, electricity, TV. We didn't have a school. People just assigned someone in mosque to teach the children. He was not a teacher. Just he teach us reading and writing. Please give me a minute time. I want to the thanks from American troops. When they came to Afghanistan, they really helped us and they gave us a big chance to improve. In 2003, it was the first time that a school established in our district. And I'm so grateful from American troops about this. Yeah, when this school established, this school was for 5 villages, but my village was so far away from school. I had to walk for 2 hours to I get school, and after school I walked again for 2 hours. And after school also, I like other girls. I worked with my parents on the farm, and I helped them in the house. In school, we just all the my classmates were boys. We just two girls. We were at class because many people didn't allow their daughters to go to school, and I was so far away from government, military, soldiers. I didn't know anything about this, and up to sixth grade, I was at school. It was my life that I didn't know anything about them, and me or my family, anyone even didn't dream about this. That one day Farida will be a soldier.
Yeah. Wow. I had no idea that there was a school put in place in 2003. I mean, a 2-hour walk is a long way. That is very interesting that you did that each day. I think
Yes.
many Americans can just imagine what it was like growing up in Afghanistan, and we just see the conflict, the war. Um, could you just share what it was like for you growing up? What were you? Did you feel like there was a lot of war around you, or were you in a village where you just didn't notice it that much?
As I told you, up to sixth grade, I was in the village. I didn't know about war, soldiers, anything, and it was a role a lot. But in 2008, we moved to Kabul city, and
Wow.
I had more chance to elevate my education. I had more freedom, but unfortunately, Taliban had taken peace from people, and everyday life was stressful for us. Taliban, they didn't care about regular people or soldiers, military. Just they wanted to kill the people. They did suicide attack at government office, military base, hospital, school, educational center, gym, mosque, even in wedding party. We were not safe in anywhere, and like sometimes we decide to go to for picnic, but we had stress. Maybe Taliban do suicide attack. Maybe we all family be killed. Uh, Even we couldn't celebrate our holidays, our New Year. It was because people was afraid. Maybe we be killed by suicide attack. Even we have an event, religious events, like we mourn it 10 days once a year. And in the mosque, we mourn it. But Taliban, many times they did suicide attack on the mosque. But after that, our family, we made a plan that we, all family, we should not go to in the same mosque, because if
Wow.
probably suicide attack happen, we all family will be killed. We divided in different mosques, one person in one mosque.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
And Farida, I'm going to ask Taylor a question, but I'm going to come back to you. And in a moment, I'd just like to hear your thoughts about what you would like people to know of Afghanistan that we might not think of, because all we think of might be conflict, but some of the other parts. But for Taylor, I know you had lived overseas. When you had gotten to Afghanistan, what surprised you about that country?
Um, the people were so like welcoming and giving. Like they just wanted to give you everything. Like, all the FTPs we worked with to include Farida. I mean, I remember one time I told one of the girls she had this beautiful blue rug in her room, and we were all hanging out after training. And I was like, "Oh, that's a beautiful rug." And she goes, "Do you want it?" And she started like moving her bed to give me the rug. And I was like, "Oh, no, 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 I don't want to take it from you. I just want to tell you how beautiful it is." And you would see them walking, and you'd wave, and they would have food and be like, "Do you want some of our food?" And I'll go, "Oh, no, we just wanted to say hello." So the people that we worked with, which were primarily other, Afghan military members, they're just so giving and just so happy to work together.
Yeah. And then, yeah, Farida, so for you, what are some of the things you would like people to know about Afghanistan beyond just the war that we've always heard of?
Yeah, I want people to know that all people in Afghanistan are not like Taliban. Afghan people are kind, they are hospitable, they are nice people, and they are the same human that the other people are in foreign countries. Like Afghan people, they are so hospitable. They love to other visit other people and welcome them in their country, and they love to be happy. Like they also like to dance, music, play music, and Afghan people like they love foreign people. They are not like Taliban that foreign people kill foreign people. Afghan people, they love foreign people, but and also they like Taylor told before, yeah, and they want to give a gift for other people. They are so hospitable.
Yeah, that's so
Yeah,
true. And
yeah.
Farida, could you help us understand why would you have decided to join the military of all the things you could do? And as you said, as a young girl, that wasn't something people expected. What made you want to join the military?
When I was at high school, I always loved to be tough woman, a strong woman, and I must be the voice of other women that they didn't were allowed to learn knowledge and go to school. When I was at high school, my sister was at military, and she always talked to me about military uniform, about men and women that they work shoulder to shoulder in military. And when I heard about military, it made me interested. I joined military. Yeah, and I thought, yeah, this is the best way that I can be a strong woman and I can show the people, yes, women also are strong and they are the same like men. And yeah, this was the reason that I decided to join military.
Was your sister an FTP also?
Yeah, she was also a
Wow. Okay. How did your parents think, or did they want you to be in the military for you and your sister, or did they want you to do something else?
Yes, at first I would say my sister was in military, but she was not FTP at first, and she joined FTP after me.
Ah,
Yeah, and my parents, yeah, they didn't like to I joined military because I was so young girl on that time. Yeah, they, but I resist and I tried. Finally, I satisfied them and I joined military. But my mother was so worried about me, especially when I joined to FTP and I deployed to province. It made her so worried. Actually, I always lied to my mother. She didn't know that I'm part of the special operation mission and I'm FTP. When I deployed to province, I always tell her, "Hey, mom, I have a medical training in this province, or just for 3 months. Yeah, I want to go." When I was in station, yeah, in the base, I was deployed. We actually we was awake in the night and we was asleep at the daytime. She called me in the day that I'm asleep, just I work at night. She was wondering, what are you doing? You are awake at night and you are asleep at the day. Yeah, mom, I said, they are American people. They left work at night time. They train me at night time.
oh, that's so interesting. I wonder, Taylor, if I could come to you, and I know people who listen to this program, the reason we found both of you was through Patrick Kinsella, who was a former Ranger and then helped train Farida and so many others. And Farida, Patrick had so many great things to say about you. So just we'll talk about that later. But Taylor, if you could give a little context of the type of work that FTPs would do, the type of units they'd work with, just I don't think people realize just how unique and frankly very cool this unit was.
Yeah, it was exactly that. Really unique and really cool. I mean, these women did everything. So they were working directly with special operations units, and my job primarily over there was to train them for their deployments. And we trained on everything. I mean, these women were fast roping. They were shooting rifles, shooting pistols. We were learning CQB. We were doing ruck marches, 5 mile runs. And mind you, these ladies were doing all this PT that Americans do. We were doing it with them, except they were doing it in full hijab, long sleeves, and pants in the summer of Afghanistan. So they didn't let anything stop them. And we were out there. Gosh, what else were we doing? Lots of yeah, it was a lot of CQB, a lot of night missions. So we were doing NVG training. Everything that we were doing, they were doing right alongside with us.
That is so cool. Like helicopter insertions,
Oh
just
yeah,
the whole thing, right? Like you're going in with Rangers, like SOCOM units going into
yeah,
combat.
100%. They were doing everything right alongside. We did a ton of medical training. In fact, there was a really cool story that recently happened when I first got there that one of our FTPs had actually put a tourniquet on a male soldier who had been injured in combat and ended up saving his limb, if not his life. And that was a really big deal because it was a woman giving, medical treatment in the field during combat to a male and saving him. And I mean, these women did everything that we did.
Farida, I don't think we had this question in here before, but could you talk about the training to become an FTP? How hard was it?
Yeah, it was hard, but also we enjoyed from this training.
It was fun, huh? Okay.
Yeah, it was fun. Yeah.
So I understand from talking to Taylor previously that the uniform that you wore and the patches meant a lot to you. Could you tell more about that? Share a little more about that.
Yeah, our uniform it was so different from other units, and when we wore our uniform and our body armor and helmet, we really felt so proud, and yeah, we feel that we are special. You know, in Afghanistan, maybe 8 or 10 million women are in Afghanistan, but it was just 32 or 40 girls that they did the special operation in
Yeah.
Afghanistan. Yeah, and the other units, when they hear about the FTP and about their training, about their operations, it was difficult for them to believe. But it was just the only uniform, only our uniform that proved us and showed for them, yeah, you're really the wonderful woman that we do the operations.
And we'll have pictures of the women just so you can see like they're in full tactical gear. It's really cool to see. So Farida, I'm going to ask you a question in a moment about your first combat experience, but Taylor, I wonder if you could help set the stage with what the mission expectation was for an FTP. Like when
Yeah,
they're on the
so
objective, what was the expectation there for their role?
yeah, so for both CSTs and FTPs, our role was to handle all the women and children on a mission. So, there was a lot of times where male soldiers didn't have access to women in Afghanistan because it was culturally inappropriate for men to talk to women. So, they would end up just getting, pushed in a room and not dealt with. Our job was to be there to talk to them, to question them about what was going on, to try and gain some intelligence. We were there to search them to make sure they weren't hiding anything dangerous. I mean, there were women hiding AKs, pistols, S-vests. They had everything, but they also were hiding intelligence. Sometimes they were forced to, sometimes I'm sure it was willing, but yeah, they were hiding good intelligence on their person that would have otherwise been completely overlooked if FTPs weren't there to find it.
And it's probably safe to say that it was probably born out of trial and error, like going on objectives with all guys, not being able to communicate, not being able to interact or possibly exploit intelligence or safeguard the unit that's there.
Yeah, I think I was in kind of the later years of CSTs, but I would, I give a lot of credit to those early CSTs and FTPs because yeah, they weren't always welcomed on target as women, even though we were like, hey, we're here to help you accomplish it. I've heard a lot of stories where it wasn't always welcome. Thankfully, by the time I got there, we were wanted assets most of the time. In my experience, I was treated really well, and we were enablers to help accomplish the mission. And FTPs also did an excellent job keeping the women and children calm on target. I mean,
Yeah.
there might be a handful of men, but there might be 2, 3, 4 times as many women and children. And the FTPs did a phenomenal job just keeping everything calm so that, it's already a chaotic situation. So they really helped calm things down.
Oh, it's so interesting. Okay. Farida, if you can take us to the first combat experience that you had, what was it like? What did it feel like? Please.
Yeah, of course, yeah. My first deployment was in Mazar Sharif, and the first my first operation it was supposed to be go to Kunduz, and did this operation by helicopter, and I didn't. It was not difficult for me because I did a lot of training in Scorpion, but I was excited because it was supposed to I go to real mission. I was so excited, and when we was in a helicopter and it landed. Sorry, I want to say before operation we had a short brief and they explained the area and I knew everything before mission, but when helicopter landed and I was so serious when I ran out from helicopter and I just knelt on the ground and I took security from my side. But I was watching the other guys that they were so relaxed and they just walk around the helicopter. I was wondering why they were not serious. We were in target. But in this time, one guy came and tapped my shoulder. Hey, Frida, you are not in the target. You're in the Kunduz corps. We want to get gas for helicopter. It made us so laugh. Yes. And yeah, when we flew again and we landed to target, and unfortunately, our target he was escaped, but we found a lot of ammunition with guns. Just we found them and we explored them. And when in expel time, because my helmet it was a little bit big for me and it was not just for me, it was new. Yeah, just I had to fix my night vision with my hand, and the other my hand was on the weapon. I was so behind of other platoon. Just one American guy he helped me to I reach the other people.
Wow.
But I like that. Yeah, I enjoyed from my first mission.
When you returned to the base after that mission, did you feel very proud? What did it feel like for you coming back from that first operation?
Yeah, the first mission it made me more confident, and I was proud of myself that yes, now I'm the person that I go to in Taliban's village and they escape from me. It's not an easy work to be. You go to in Taliban's village among the Taliban, and it made me the first mission made me so interested more about FTP, and I hope to we do a mission every night. I like that.
Um, Taylor, if I can ask you, I know your primary job was to train. Could you take us through it? I understand you did go on target a handful of times. Could you talk about one of the first times you did that? And was that your first time in a combat scenario as a CST, or was it some other role that you were in previously?
Yeah, so my CST deployment was my first and only deployment so far. So all of this was my first experience in a combat zone. Yeah, my first mission, I was with Ranger Regiment. We went in, I was with one other CST and one other FTP. I remember that was my first time in a Chinook ever. And so that was pretty crazy, like, infilling and you're running off it, blackout conditions with a loaded rifle. And that was my first time ever being on a Chinook, and here I am running off it. And then I also remember as we were heading towards the target, I looked around and I realized I ended up as rear security for the entire element, which I don't think was supposed to happen, but I was like, all right, like this is my job now. So, you know, head on a swivel. And then we got there, and thankfully, like everything went pretty smoothly. They breached into the compound and you hear the radio, hey, CSTs, we need you. We get up to the front and there was a lot of women and children there to handle. And something that really stood out, like a really surreal moment for me was, it's all under night vision. It's really dark. So everything's already kind of that green, grainy, lack of depth perception. And I'm looking at all the women and children lined up, and there was a woman there holding a doll. And I was like, that's weird, and I'm about to search them, make sure they don't have anything dangerous or intelligence on them. So I remember taking the doll away and the doll started moving. And that's when I realized it was a baby, but it was so small and squishy is the best word, because it was probably so malnourished. And then it started crying. And it was such a surreal moment to be in the middle of a compound, night vision, full kit. And I've got, my hands on one hand's kind of like handling my rifle, the other hand is now holding a crying baby, and I'm trying to calm it down so that the other women and children don't freak out, because all around us are the Rangers doing their job. Um, Luckily, baby calmed down. That was just a very surreal moment. You just don't imagine yourself in combat holding a
No.
crying baby. But yeah, we searched women and children, we talked to them. Oftentimes the women, they were, once they found out that, we were women, Afghan and American, we actually wore our hair a lot like this, so they could see we have long hair, we really are women like you. They were very trusting, and then most of my job for the rest of that mission was just entertaining the women and kids, and we were done. And then we left, and it was great.
How do you go about entertaining people on an objective like this?
Great question. It's funny, like all the CSTs kind of had, we called like our candy pouch or our candy pocket. And it was like, we had all the regular tactical stuff. And then there was like a pouch dedicated to candy. And we would just like hand out little candies to the kids. And how do you just hang out with them like little
Yeah,
kids and just
man,
entertain them?
gosh. How nervous were you going in to search people, knowing like, hey, they could have a vest on or a weapon?
Yeah, that was always the scariest part for me. So, right at the beginning, you kind of just do a quick sweep, like, are they slinging an AK under that burqa? Is there a vest under there? Thankfully, I never handled an S vest, but for me, that was the scariest moment because, yeah, that could obviously go pretty disastrously.
For sure. Oh, wow. Okay. Farida, if we come back to you, could you talk to us about one of the more difficult missions or operations that you found yourself on? Maybe a difficult target, maybe something unexpected that happened during the operation?
Yeah, one of my most difficult operation was in a district. It was like a town. It was crowded. Usually, it's hard to do operation on the town. Some part of this district was under Taliban's control, and some part of this district was under Afghan National Army's control. When we went to the target and started our mission, Taliban they had base over there and they started shooting to us. And Afghan National Army they were confused that from our units no one want to do mission over there, and who are these guys that they have operation here? They were confused and they also start shooting to us. Taliban and National Army, both of them were shooting to us, and also we didn't have enough ammunition with us. And also we didn't want to shoot to Afghan National Army because they are our guys, yeah. But we didn't have any option. It was like about 500 or 600 meters. National Afghan National Army arrived close to us. They were with military vehicle. Just we decided to meet with other FTP. We put off all our equipments and we raised our hand and we ran to ANA and told them, "Don't shoot to us, don't shoot to us. We are special forces. We are like." We say for special forces, our unit name was KK. I called them, "We are KK. Don't shoot to us, and we are FTP." And when I reached to them, Afghan National Army, they were so surprised. What are you ladies doing here? And I talked to them. I talked to them. Your special force, and we have operation here. And they come to us in the same target house, and we finish our operation, and we captured our target. And also we contact with Air Force because we didn't have enough ammunition, and the Air Force supported us to leave the area. It was very difficult mission.
Ah, that's super interesting. Oh man. And did the Air Force, did they drop bombs on the target or no?
Yes, yes, because yeah.
Wow.
I don't want to talk about a lot of details. Yeah,
Yep.
but they did. Yeah.
Yes. Wow. Very interesting. Taylor, same question for you. Did you have a particularly difficult operation that you recall?
Well, I don't think I have any stories that could possibly follow up that one. Just throwing that out there. Actually, I was really thankful. A lot of my missions went pretty smooth. I do remember there was one, I think my first firefight, I think that's pretty
Yeah.
sketchy for anyone, first time with that. This time I was with an ODA and they had asked for CST support, and we'd never met these guys, we never trained with them. So that was a little weird just going into combat with someone who you met like 2 days before. And another CST and I, we show up and we ended up splitting. She went with the GAF element and I went with the half. So
just quickly, just for people who don't know, basically the ground assault force.
Yeah, ground assault force and helicopter assault force.
Okay.
Yeah. So I went with the half and we landed. Of course, again, dead of night, still really new to me. Yeah, we worked a couple clicks to the target, and I think it was like the first. We took a compound and stayed there for a few nights, and I think the first day we were there, we had a support element up on the mountain. We were kind of like at a low area. We had a support element up on the mountain, and they started taking fire. And I remember I was actually sleeping. It wasn't, I got a break from security, and I woke up to a couple gunshots, and we heard, "Hey, no worry, go back to sleep. It's fine." We were like, "Okay." So I go back to sleep, and then you hear a couple more, and I was like, "I don't know what this is, but I want a part of it." So jump up, kit up, and yeah, our support element was taking effective fire. They said they had rounds skipping at their feet. So we started laying suppressive fire for our guys to get back to a safe spot. And then we ended up calling CAS, and that took care of them. But yeah, I mean, first time actually in a firefight, that's pretty memorable.
Did you say I wanted a part of it? Is that what you just said?
Yeah. I mean, you hear gunshots, you're like, well, I shouldn't sleep through this. The first time they were like, oh, it's fine, it's just one or two, go back to sleep. And then we heard more, like, no, whatever this is, I need to be a part of it.
Oh, that's super interesting. Okay. And then another question for you, Taylor, that I've been really interested in. When you spend most of your time, as you said, was training Farida and the FTP, and then you're sending them into operations like Farida just described, where like you could have friendly engagements, like unknown battle space environment. You got planes dropping bombs. You're basically sending these people that you spend all of your time with, like free time and professional time, into possibly the most dangerous operations with the special ops community. What was the burden like for you sending them into combat like this?
Yeah, I mean, it was tough. That was a lot of pressure. Like you said, we were spending not just training time, but our free time. I mean, we would train with these ladies and then we'd go eat and hang out in their compound together, and we became friends. And it was difficult sending them out, and there was definitely a lot of pressure to make sure that they were trained and equipped and ready to go. But honestly, there were some senior FTPs that had been on dozens of combat missions, before I even ever landed in country, probably before I even joined the Army. I mean, the older FTPs, the more senior ones, they had so much experience that I had full confidence that between us and the senior FTPs, that they would make sure that the younger, newer ones that we were pushing on deployment, that they were ready to go. And even our newer FTPs, they were genuinely so competent and so motivated. It was of course scary, but I wasn't too worried about them. I had full confidence. I would say I actually felt a lot more pressure helping the unit just stay alive. Recruiting was a huge issue. Of course, running, you have to have people and new people constantly coming in. Because we had some FTPs that had been doing this job for 10 years, and just like us, at some point you want to stay in the military, but maybe you don't want to be deploying every single year to these wild missions. So, we had ladies that were on the team, but maybe they weren't up for deploying every single year. So we had to keep getting new people. We had to keep convincing the American and Afghan government that this unit was worth keeping alive, constantly showcasing their capabilities and their skills. So I think I actually felt more pressure just keeping the unit alive.
Wow. Would never have thought of that. That's so interesting. Okay. Farida, for you, we in America watched the evacuation of Afghanistan with, it was shocking and really sad, quite frankly, for a lot of us who have spent time over there. Could you tell us what it was like from your perspective?
Yeah, in August 17, it was supposed to all FTP go to airport, and it was early in the morning that we arrived to airport. And when I arrived and I watched it, looked at all people from Kabul city, they come to airport, and it was so crowded and it was horrible. Soldiers were warning shot, and they threw flashbang, and also they sprayed tear gas to keep people go away from gate. And the one thing, it was summertime, it was so hot and the sun was shining, but the one thing that it really made me so sad, that children were scared, they yelled, they cried. It was very hard. But for in first day we tried, but we couldn't enter to airport. We was behind of all the people, because some FTP they have children. He was behind of all the people, but some FTPs that they didn't have any children, they was younger. They entered to airport on first day, but me with some girls, as I told, my sister was FTP. She had a baby. I was with them on behind of people. We couldn't enter. For 2 nights and 2 days, we was on outside. Just on at night time, also we slept on the outside of airport. But it was the second night that it was in the midnight, about 1 or 2 o'clock. The soldiers they spread a very strong tear gas that all the people were escaping. We didn't care about ourselves, just we took care of children, and we put their scarf on the baby's face, and took them in our arms, and we just ran away. When we found out ourselves in a safe area, we felt very bad burning in our nose and our eyes so badly. And when just we decided to go to back the home, we cannot make it. We were in touch with CSTs, and CSTs told us, yeah, just go to home until we don't tell you guys to come back airport, don't try again. About 1 week we were in our house. It was on August 23 that CSTs text us, yeah, right now you guys can go to airport, and we have a good plan for you to enter to airport. And CSTs were in touch with soldiers in airport, and the American soldiers, they sent us a location. It was not like we enter from gate. It was behind of airport, just close to a tower. The location that they sent us, we went to that location, and soldiers just there was not any door or any gate, just soldiers they caught the barbed and put a ladder, and we climbed up from ladder, and we entered to airport. It was very tough days. I really cannot forget that days in my life.
Wow. Gosh. I can't even imagine what that was like. Taylor, where were you when this was going on? Were you back in the States at this time?
Yeah, we were back in the States, and I didn't have a lot of direct involvement with the evacuation portion, but I do know that there were CSTs working literally around the clock. I mean, day and night. And mind you, most of these women still had full-time jobs, active duty. So they'd go to their active duty job, and then all at night, it would be, evacuation stuff. And it was, from what I've heard from both the CSTs and of course like Farida's experience, it was chaotic and wild.
And even the Politico article that we were talking about, they show just some of the text messages being sent between the CSTs and the FTPs, like, hey, go to this part of the airport, like Farida's saying, like arrows drawing it, like very hastily done just to get them inside the wall, basically to safeguard them. Farida, if I can ask, I don't think I had this question in there, but were you able to talk to your family about the evacuation as you were leaving? Did your family know that you were going to leave?
Yeah, because in first day that government collapsed, we we were scared, and just me and my sister, we decided to leave our house because we were scared. Yeah, maybe Taliban come and capture us, and we leave our house. And I talked to my mom. Yeah, we have to leave our house, and we should be in some place that no people know that we are OEM. And because my mom was so worried when we decided to come to United States, and I explained for her, yeah, we are going to United States because my life is at risk here, and I have to leave. And I told for her about this.
Wow. So I wonder if I could ask you, Farida, about Sisters of Service. I understand that's how you and Taylor are also connected, not just training, but this great organization. What has Sisters of Service meant for you?
Yeah, when we arrived to United States, the sister service at first they assigned assist for each FTPs to help them in about settle in United States, about culture, about private life. And right now, every FTP has a monitor, and Taylor is my monitor. And at first, I didn't know. So I make an appointment in the bank, in the hospital, and
Yeah.
I was always in touch with Taylor, and she always helped me. Hey, make like this, and also sister service provide for us English class, some mental health class, and some computer class, and still they want to continue their help for next 2 years.
Wow. And Taylor, you could be doing a whole lot of things right now. Obviously, you're in the reserves, you got a job, um, but you spend your time doing this. Why do you do that?
Um, I guess it's so they are our sisters. Like they are friends, and I think there's very, very few people in the world that can relate to us the way that they can. Like the stories that Farida tells about lying to her mom and stuff. I did the same thing, and it's funny because I didn't know that about Farida, but I mean, I did the same thing. My mom was terrified, and I was like, "Oh, mom, the internet's gonna be out for a few days. Like, they're gonna repair it. I'll talk to you." Meanwhile, I was going on a mission, and so like there's just things that I think only FTPs and CSTs can really understand. So it was so simple that when they needed help, like we're gonna give everything we have, all of our time, all of our attention, whatever we have, we're gonna help them be successful here as they were in Afghanistan.
What just so we spend, I think it's important people hear more about this organization. I know you spent a lot of time with it. What was the origin of it? If you could just share for people who might be interested.
Yeah, so after the evacuation process, a lot of us CSTs were talking, and um, it was just realized that these women were going to need so much more support than just physically getting here in the US. As most people know, it's not an easy system to navigate when you're from here and you're a
No.
native English speaker. So we knew that to make sure they were successful and happy here, that we had to continue giving them support. And so there were two CSTs in particular, who really, really started this organization. And at first, I was good friends with one of them. We were deployed together when I met Farida. And at first I was like, hey, like, why don't we send care packages out to these women? I made an Excel sheet and I was like, yeah, we'll send care packages out. And it has turned into so much more. I mean, the CSTs, we have a meeting at least once a month all together. The FTPs have their own meetings. And every month we have a new goal or theme. It's like, okay, this month we're going to talk about financial literacy. How do we teach these women to be financially independent in the US? Maybe the next month it's about health. How do we teach them about how healthcare works in the US? And it's grown into so much more and so much more involvement than I ever imagined.
Jeez, that's so interesting. And we'll have links to Sisters of Service, but presumably anything people can do to help. What would you ask people to do if if you have a moment of their time?
Um, I would say, I guess, two things. One, check out our website. There's a lot of great information if you want to help these women in particular. But two, we have Afghan refugees all across the US. Like our women are everywhere from the East Coast to Alaska. And that's the same story for all these Afghan refugees. And a lot of them are really deserving of help. So I would just say, wherever you are, look at your local community, see what's going on with refugees, how you can just help in your own community.
Yeah. So, Farida, for you, I know you mentioned you were working as a roofer. You've stopped doing that. Where do you think you'll be? Where do you want to be in 5 or 10 years if you look ahead?
You know, I was so younger that I started working on military, and still I love uniform, I love military, I love to use gun, and I don't know about United States rules to as a refugee I can join the military or not, but I will try my best. I join the military in United States.
Oh, wow. That would be so cool. So there are a couple questions I like to ask everybody. So Taylor, why don't we start with you on this one, and then I'll ask Farida the same question. But Taylor, for you, was there anything that you carried into combat with you on an operation that you just that had sentimental value, was a good luck charm, or maybe something that somebody gave you that had a lot of meaning?
Yeah, I had two things. I had one was a patch that my husband gave me. We had like matching patches, so I wore that on the inside of my vest. That was very special to me. And the other was probably one of the most important gifts I've ever gotten. When I was looking, or when I first heard about CST, I started reading this book called Ashley's War, which is about the first CST KIA, Ashley White. And as I'm reading the book, one of my platoon leader buddies, who I know was a Ranger NCO before he became an officer, he saw me reading the book. We start talking about it, and I'm telling him how great this book is and how amazing. And he just patiently listens to me, and then he goes, "Yeah, I knew Ashley." And I was like, "What?" And I'm not kidding. He sticks his hand out, and he has a memorial band with Ashley White, Sergeant First Class May, and PFC Horns, who were all killed in action together. And he told me about how incredible she was in the program. He's like, "I really think you should go for it." So fast forward a few years, and I was in selection. I was at Fort Benning. He was back at Fort Benning, and he gave me that memorial bracelet. And
Wow,
with me, that's one of the most special gifts I've ever received.
that's super interesting. Where, a couple questions. The selection process for CST, how hard was that?
That was pretty tough. It was, yeah, it was, I would say it was as much a mind game as it was physical. It was a lot of unknowns, a lot of I feel like mental, social, emotional tests as it was physical.
Interesting. A lot of also presumably a lot of shooting CQB, because they
Yes.
probably don't let anybody off the street go and work with special ops.
Yeah, it was a pretty lengthy process. I'm trying to think. I think first there's of course the Milper message comes out and it says, "Hey, this is open if you want to apply." So we send the paper application in, and I think I was told there were like 90 something women that ended up putting a paper application in. And then I think they parsed it down to like 20. They sent us to civil affairs assessment and selection because at this time they didn't have enough funding or resources to run a CST specific selection process. So they just sent it to us to CAS.
Ah,
And if we passed CAS, then they would kept sending us on training, and we got narrower and narrower and narrower, and we ended up doing a lot of training with Ranger Regiment. So yeah, a lot of shooting, a lot of medical, a lot of scenarios.
how many ended up from that 90 in your
Six.
six? Holy cow.
Six. Yeah,
Okay.
so six of us ended up deploying to country.
That's like a buds class or something. That's cool. Um, okay, Farida, sorry, real quick, Taylor, the patches that you and your husband have, were they like a matching patch that you guys made yourself, or was it his unit, or what?
Oh, I think they were a custom patch that he made. It was just like a funny little thing for the two of us. So I had like it was like a little character, and he had the guy version, and I had the female version.
Ah, that's cool. Okay,
Yeah,
very
he's
cool.
super supportive of everything. He's incredible.
Awesome. Farida, for you, the same question. Was there anything that you carried with you on operations that meant a lot to you?
Yes, usually because my mom always she was worried about me. She gave me a part of Holy Quran. It's a religious book, And she always advised me, when you go to outside from house, please carry this with yourself. And I had that part of Holy Quran in all of my missions with myself.
Was it a small book?
No, like it's not, that's not a small book, just it's a part of, like, a small part of Holy Quran.
Yeah, that's really neat. And then the next question that I ask everybody, Taylor, to you first, after everything you went through, especially with what happened with the evacuation and how that environment changed so rapidly, would you go back and do all that again?
In a heartbeat. Yeah, no doubt.
No doubt. You're still doing it basically. And I know Farida wants to go, but same for you, Farida. You gave up so much, just from talking about 2003, a school being there, walking 4 hours to school, the fighting that's gone on in Afghanistan, your family still being there, all the sacrifice. Would you go back and do that again?
Yes, I want to do them from deep of my heart, and it is my big wish to I wear uniform and I fight.
Ah, so I wanted to end on something. I asked Patrick if he would share some thoughts about you, Farida. So he sent me this that I want to read to you. And he said that his name there was Kaka Jamshid. Yes. So he said, let me make sure I get the right part here. Okay. He says, Farida, you are one of my favorite soldiers to emerge from the FTP program. You are the definition of having a never quit attitude. As you know, that first time when you tried out for the FTP and were unsuccessful, instead of leaving the battalion, you stayed and worked in the aid station as a nurse for the FTPs, which was a selfless decision and provided the females with an ally in the aid station. Your commitment to becoming an FTP was unwavering. You showed up to PT, shooting drills, medical classes, all during your scheduled time off. And I was so thoroughly impressed. 8 months later, after you attempted the FTP course a second time, it brought me such joy to watch you graduate and receive your certificate and platoon patches. Congratulations on a job well done. Good luck with your new life in the USA. You deserve all good things about to come your way. So he was so excited to share that with me. He rewrote it twice. He's like, this isn't good enough for Farida. It's got to be better. So I just wanted to say thank you for the time that you've taken. And to both you and Taylor, is there anything that you'd like to share just before we wrap up about Sisters of Service, about this experience?
Thank you, Ryan. Thank you so much. But I really thanks from Patrick from deep of my heart. Patrick, he was a professional, our trainer, but also he was like a friend for us. You know, for a long time he was our trainer, and when he left Afghanistan, all FTP were so sad, and we cried so much for Patrick and the care for his. You know, every time that sees they were leaving Afghanistan, FTP were so sad and they cried. It was the same for Patrick. He was very long time for our trainer, and he teach us a lot of tactics. And I thanks him so much. He was our professional teacher. We love him. Thank you.
That's so great. Taylor, how about from you? Anything just before we wrap up here for people?
I just want to say thank you actually to all the Rangers and the SF who opened their arms and welcomed us to that world and trained us. I felt very welcomed with all the guys that I worked with, and thank you to FTPs for just being the coolest women ever.
This has to be a movie one day. Just like the pictures are so cool. The night vision goggles you were using look like ones you'd see in a SEAL team, like probably the same the Rangers were using, the ammo, the gear, like you're going in on aircraft, fast roping. This is the coolest thing. So
we got absolutely spoiled. Like all the gear we got to use and all the equipment and like I said, the training that these guys were giving us, it was a dream. It was awesome.
Yeah. it's got to be like less than 1 or 2% of the entire military that's done fast roping. Like that type of work is just reserved for the cream of the crop. So super interesting. And I would just encourage people to go check out the website sistersofservice.org. Is that right,
I
Taylor?
believe so. Yeah.
Okay. Check it out. See what you can give to help out. Farida should be in the military here. I don't know how we help get her there, but whatever we can do. Yeah, whatever we can do to help out, let's do that. So thank you both for your time and for all the sacrifice that you've given. This was a blast.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thanks. Our first comment is on the Mike Sorelli interview, and it's on YouTube from James Stanley. It says, I did not have the honor of serving, but I have the utmost respect for the men and women who selflessly protect our great nation. I've listened to every Combat Story podcast, multiple times. Thank you, James. They're informative to us non-military folks as well as entertaining. Thank you so much, Ryan, for taking the time to allow these great patriots to share their stories. You, all of your guests, and everyone who serves in the military deserve the gratitude of the American people. Thank you. Man, James, that says a whole lot. Thank you for sharing that. Thanks for listening for so long and to all of these stories. There's a lot of them now. Glad to hear they resonate with you. And I hear you that you didn't serve, but thank you for sharing this with us and recognizing the people who did. Means a lot. Thanks so much. And our second comment is also on YouTube. This is from Christopher Hickner on the Carl Erickson interview. And he says, Ryan, I am a proud American. I too have been fascinated by these stories of combat and loss, and there are some truly wonderful men and women, soldiers that have served our country well. I am proud of each and every one. I did not serve, but my uncles and my father did. Also, my great uncle served in World War II, one as a pilot and another in the infantry. I'm truly thankful for your podcast and listen to each one with bated breath. Great job. Wow. Thank you very much, Christopher. I wish that I could have interviewed either of your grandparents. Pilots in World War II or just an infantryman there on the ground would have been amazing. So that's why we need to get these stories out so sons and daughters and grandsons and granddaughters get to hear these one day for what these folks have done today, many years from now. So that's a great call out. Thank you. And then lastly, just for our Patreon, I wanted to say thank you to Paul, Joe, Craig, Gareth, and all the others who are supporting our Patreon community. This is what helps us produce Combat Story and helps make it happen. It gives us some additional resources to get these interviews cut and out to you all. So if you'd like to provide some support and get exclusive content like videos, extra footage, upcoming interview schedules for who we're going to interview, and more, you can head over to www.patreon.com/combatstory. Thanks, y'all. Stay safe.